2023 was a crazy year in gaming. There was a lot of great games that came out in 2023, and unfortunately I wasn't able to play all of the games, but I was able to pick up a vast majority of these games, and I think there's a lot of them that really stand out. So I decided to come up with a top 10 game list of 2023 of games that I feel like still need to be played. It took a while for me to actually decide how I should make this list. I was wondering, should I add remakes, should I not add remakes, should they be only original games? In the end, I decided to add in remakes as well. But before I get into that, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to go ahead and share the channel. Sharing the channel does help out quite a lot. We are trying to hit 600 subscribers and we're so close to that goal. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the top 10 games that came out in 2023. Coming in at number 10, we have Remnant 2. Remnant 2 is like an action RPG slash shooter, looter shooter. I mean, actually, I don't really know what you want to call it, but think of it like Destiny except in third person. There's a lot of similarities to Destiny. Honestly, when I was playing it, felt very similar. You have a hub that you go to. From that hub, you teleport to different areas. The areas are actually procedurally generated, which I actually didn't know until I started reading up on it. But yeah, these areas look very handcrafted. They're very well done. You wouldn't even have noticed. And the areas are great. It's a beautiful game. It's fun to explore, fun to play. And actually the co-op aspect is really fun too. Again, similar to Destiny. If you ever played Destiny, then you probably know what vibes I'm getting at. Only difference is, of course, it's in third person. But it's a very fun game. A game that I didn't think I was going to get into, but I did get into it. And I highly recommend it if you're into those co-op action shooter games, or a looter shooter, I guess. Number 9, we have Octopath Traveler 2. Now, the only reason why this game is not higher on the list is because I haven't been in it. I just recently went back to playing it and trying to finish the game. But the game so far of what I played is very amazing. I do like the game. I like it a lot better than Octopath Traveler 1. The music is amazing. It's incredible. And again, I'm still very upset that at least this wasn't put in the best music score category for the Game Awards, because I feel like it definitely deserved to be there versus some other games that were on that list. I mean, the score in this game is amazing. But outside of that, they kind of just did what they did with Octopath Traveler 1, but fixed the issues we had. The stories kind of intertwine, not all the way, but they do intertwine a lot more, where they do have a lot more reason of why they're banding together to go on this journey, as well as the actual fighting mechanics have been improved. You do have like a special gauge that you can fill up and do special attacks, which is really fun, really nice, especially when you use the boost gauge. The boost, of course, is something that was really introduced in Bravely Default, where you have like your brave attacks, where you can go ahead and save up a turn so that you can do an extra attack, or you can increase your special skills or magic's damage output. Overall, the game is really fun. A game I really recommend it. There's a lot of differences from Octopath Traveler 1 that I feel like you do have to give this game another try. And I do feel like it is better overall, a more, I guess, completed experience. I highly recommend Octopath Traveler 2. And at number 8, we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now, this is a game that I was not sure where to rank it, because again, there were so many games that came out this year, so many great games, and this is actually one of them. But I had to put it at number 8 because I do feel like I was enjoying some of these other games a little bit more. But other than that, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is an amazing game. It feels like it captures the spirit of Super Mario World, where you do have like the secret star level. It's not a star in this game, but you do have a secret star level. There are different secret levels that you can find that lead you to that extra level, which is fun. The levels themselves are really well done. Some of the levels you will have to replay because they have multiple flagpoles that you can get to, which will give you 2 different, like, I forget what they're called, Wonder Seeds. There we go. They'll give you 2 different Wonder Seeds, which is really fun. The Wonder Seed mechanics was fun. Overall, just everything about the game was really good. The only thing I was kind of upset at is there was really no online multiplayer, which to me kind of sucked. Like, there was an online aspect to the game, but it wasn't the same. You'll have these little ghosts there in the background. They are going around, jumping around, and doing their own thing. And it does work to in a sense. Like, I remember going on this one level where you had to find like the hidden boxes to get pieces of the Wonder Seed. And man, or actually, I'm sorry, you had to find these little coins or medallions that will get you to the Wonder Seed. And I could not find some of these hidden boxes, but luckily there was a little player ghost in the background that was kind of telling me what to do. They started emoting at me, so I started following them to see what they were going at, and he was actually showing me around to where all these hidden boxes were. So there is a multiplayer aspect to it, just not what I really wanted. I would like to just go ahead and grab a group of people, be in the same lobby, and go ahead and just play together where we can affect each other's world. They didn't do that, but other than that, it's an amazing game. I really feel like it's on par. It's probably one of the top 3 games. I don't know if I would say it's better than World, probably not. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to judge it against Super Mario Bros. 3 as well, but it's definitely in the top 3 Mario games as well, maybe the top 4, because Super Mario 3D World is also really good. At number 7, we have the fighting game of the year, and that is Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 looked to bring back the aesthetics of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which I'm happy they did. They had that more like hip-hop vibe going on, and honestly, aesthetically, it's very beautiful. Just the little artworks that they do, the little like effects that they have going on is amazing. Not only that, but they just refined the fighting mechanics, making it a lot better than Street Fighter 5, because I personally wasn't a fan of Street Fighter 5, but this game I did enjoy. These characters, they just feel a lot more fluid. It is a little bit easier to pull out moves, so it is easier for a newcomer to get into, which to me it's not a bad thing. I feel like the more people you have in the fighting game community, the better, just to have fun and all that stuff. There also was a single player mode that they did called World Tour, where you kind of create your own character and you go on about following a story where you learn from different different masters, I guess they were called. I don't remember the exact name they called them, but you get different masters, you learn their moves. Think of Dragon Ball Xenoverse but Street Fighter. That's the only comparison I can really think of, but you have something like that was going on, and that's pretty cool. It wasn't really what I got it for. I got it for the just fighting aspect of it, but other than that, it was a really fun game, a game that I highly recommend. If you're not really into fighting games, maybe World Tour might strike your fancy, because it is actually a pretty decent single player action fighting game. And at number 6, we have Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is a remake, or I don't want to say reimagining, because it's not really a one-to-one remake. A lot of it is different, but nonetheless it has the spirit of Resident Evil 4. The story is pretty much the same, but the level design is completely different, and honestly, I'm all for it. Outside of the village, everything else is a lot different, and it does feel like you're playing a brand new game, just Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4, they improved on everything that was wrong with the original Resident Evil 4, which is basically the motion where you can't really aim and shoot at the same time or any of that stuff. So of course they put on the modern mechanics in this game. Resident Evil 4 is just a great game overall. I mean, the RE engine truly is an amazing engine. There's so many different games coming out on that engine, and Resident Evil 4 is no less than any of those other games. I was really excited to play. It was fun diving back into the world of Resident Evil 4, and honestly, they did a really great job. I was worried because of Resident Evil 3 remake was very shortened down, and there was a lot of stuff missing in that game, but there was none of that in Resident Evil 4. Maybe there was a few things that I don't really remember that was missing, but other than that, it felt fully complete. It felt as long as the original Resident Evil 4, and I enjoyed it, and that's the main thing that that counts, right? Is if you enjoy the game. So Resident Evil 4, a game I highly recommend it. If you never played a Resident Evil game, honestly, this is a good game to start off with. Resident Evil 2 is still my favorite Resident Evil game, but I still recommend Resident Evil 4 because it's a fun action horror game. And I guess on the last note, they did bring some horror elements back into Resident Evil 4, which was something that was missing in the original Resident Evil 4. Number 5, we have another remake, and that is Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime remake looks amazing. It's honestly probably the best looking Switch game out there. They really did a remake of the graphics, so I guess you can call it a remaster, but the graphics were done from the ground up. It just looks beautiful. The lighting is just improved, and just everything about the game is improved. Of course, the controls are also improved because the controls didn't really age well. You can now aim with the right thumbstick, which is definitely a nice thing, and of course your shooting buttons are now your triggers. Overall, the game is amazing. If you've never played a Metroid Prime game, I highly recommend it. You can actually see that Halo Infinite was definitely inspired by Metroid Prime because it just feels like Metroid Prime. When you go inside You solve a small puzzle, even though there weren't that many puzzles in that game. You have the little tune that lets you know that a puzzle was solved, which is something that Metroid Prime did. I mean, honestly, in my head, when I'm solving real life puzzles, that tune just pops in my head as well. So yeah, Metroid Prime is definitely a game to play. One of the best first person games out there. In my opinion, it's the best first person shooter game out there. While it's not a competitive shooter, overall it's an action adventure shooter, Metroidvania at that, and I highly recommend it if you haven't played one. Number 4 is another remake. I'm sorry for all the remakes here, but I guarantee you this is the last one. Okay, I promise this is the last one, and that is Super Mario RPG Remake. What a great remake. Honestly, what a great game overall. I never really played the original one. It was just a game that skipped me because I wasn't really a fan of RPGs in the SNES era. It wasn't until the PS1 era where I got into RPGs. But Super Mario RPG is a team up with Square Enix and Nintendo, and honestly it's a great team up. Mario in an RPG just fits. There are other games, of course, like the Mario and Luigi sagas. There's Paper Mario. There are also like RPG likes. Well, some of the Paper Mario games are, right? But Mario RPG is probably the definitive version of a Mario RPG. The cast is great, the world is great, just everything about it is smooth. The fighting, the turn-based combat is just amazing. The mini games that surround it are fun. Like, just everything about this game is amazing. And honestly, if you haven't played Super Mario RPG, or if you haven't gotten into RPGs at all, I think this is an RPG game you should really try out. You probably will get into, because there's a lot of fun things about this game. So I highly recommend it. It's also pretty short, so it won't take up a lot of your time. It's about, I don't know, around 13-ish hours. It took me about 13 hours to finish my playthrough. So yeah, definitely give it a try. Highly recommend it. Don't skip on Super Mario RPG. Alright, when it comes to the top 3, this was the hardest part. And honestly, I couldn't figure out an order for these 3, but I'm gonna just stick with this order for now. It'll probably change over time, and I don't care. Honestly, when it comes to this whole list, it really doesn't matter. Like, you can put these games in any order. I still feel though that these are the top 10 games you should try out. So coming in at number 3, we have Fire Emblem Engage. Honestly, I like this more than Fire Emblem Three Houses. It brought back a more complex map setup that we haven't had since, well, the GBA era actually, or I guess the Wii era. I don't remember. I think Radiant Dawn was the last game before the 3DS one, but I could be wrong. I gotta go and backtrack and see what it is. But anyways, there's a lot more complex maps in this game, and just overall the maps are just fun. The mission objectives are more varied and fun. And the cast, well, yeah, they're a little bit one-dimensional, except for like the lead of each country's like house, or whatever you want to call them, like of the kingdom's house. Other than that, like, all the other characters are just there, and yeah, I do get that they're not really that important compared to like I believe it's 5. I can't really remember right now, but the game is fun. And honestly, the emblem system works out great. It was a system that I thought was going to overpower your characters, and I thought, wow, this was going to make the game very easy, but no, it doesn't. Actually, you have to use it pretty, like, you really gotta use strategy in this game, especially when it comes to the emblems. You just can't use it at any time, and honestly, I do like that aspect of it. Very fun game. The soundtrack is amazing. Definitely one of the best soundtracks they've had since Shadows of Valentia, I would say. Even though Three Houses has some good songs, I do prefer the soundtrack here in Engage. Overall, Engage is a great Fire Emblem game. If you're a fan of Fire Emblem, this is the game to get. The emblems, of course, are past Fire Emblem characters, and I believe this was originally an anniversary game. It just didn't come out because of COVID and everything like that. So yeah, definitely play Fire Emblem Engage. Highly recommend it. One of my favorite games, my top 3 games of 2023. So this one is even harder to pick, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate on this, but coming in at number 2, it's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom did everything that Breath of the Wild did, but just so much better. It's just a better game overall when you compare it to Breath of the Wild. Exploration's a lot more fun. Having the sky area is fun. The underground, though, is even more amazing, especially when you find out what the underground actually is, which is mind blown. And just everything about this game was fun. The combat was a little bit more improved. Having, well, actually, I won't mention that because it might be a spoiler, so I'll leave it at that. But just overall, it's a game that I highly recommend. It does feel fresh. It does feel new. It does not really feel like Breath of the Wild 1.5. It feels like Breath of the Wild 2. So yeah, which it is technically Breath of the Wild 2. But it does feel like a brand new game where they add more elements. They did stick with what worked out in Breath of the Wild, just improve that, and hey, I'm fine with it. And that's actually kind of the reason why I didn't put it at number one, because it was just an improvement on Breath of the Wild. But overall, the game is amazing. I had a lot of fun. Still haven't beaten it. I want to jump back in and play it, but I have like over 70 hours in the game. Just an amazing game overall. If you love Zelda, if you love open world games, if you love building stuff, because I hate building stuff, but this game made it fun, then I highly recommend Tears of the Kingdom. Now, before we get to the number one game on my list, I do want to give an honorable mention to Dragon Quest Monsters 3, or what's known over here as Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince. It's technically the third game, and I believe in Japan it's called Dragon Quest Monsters 3. Alright, yeah, I had to fact check myself. It is Dragon Quest Monsters 3 in Japan. But anyways, Dragon Quest Monsters 3 is a game that I haven't picked up yet, but I did play the demo. And so far it looks really amazing. Honestly, like the art style looks really good, and it is fun. It is a monster catching game where you go ahead and capture the monsters from the Dragon Quest series and put them to fight against each other. Honestly, the game overall seems really fun. Now, I've heard there are spoilers for Dragon Quest 4, so if you've never played Dragon Quest 4, you might get some spoilers, but I think this is still a great game to actually go and get yourself introduced with, because if you play this, you might be more interested in playing Dragon Quest 4. So then you can go ahead and buy it, so that we can get more Dragon Quest games coming out, because Dragon Quest needs a lot more love. Honestly, I fell in love when I first played Dragon Quest 5, and since then I've liked every game in the series. So yes, I highly recommend picking this up if you haven't. Try out the demo. I mean, it doesn't hurt, it's free. You just go ahead and download the demo, but the game overall seems really fun, and I can't wait to go ahead and pick it up and finally play it. I just gotta finish a few other games that I have in my backlog before I pick this up. Alright, and now we have number one. We have number one, and that is Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars was a game that I was super excited for when I first heard it. It was announced, I want to say, about a couple years ago, and since then I've been following the development. I was a huge fan of The Messenger, really loved The Messenger, and when this game was announced, it was just like, yeah, give me more of The Messenger. But no, it wasn't more of The Messenger. Instead, it was a turn-based RPG that was pretty much inspired by Super Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, Illusion of Gaia, and there's a lot more other games that it was inspired by. And honestly, the game is really good. It's amazing. I had a lot of fun playing this. It just brought me back to a time where games were just simpler, right? They were simpler in design, a lot more fun to play overall in my opinion, and they were kind of straightforward. There wasn't a lot of sugarcoating or padding around these games. They were just more straightforward adventures where you get into the action, go fight a boss, move on to the next town, and so forth. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. I honestly prefer games like this, and I wish more games were more, upfront like this, but there aren't that many. Anyways, Sea of Stars is an amazing game. If you're a fan of any of those games I just mentioned, I highly recommend it. It's a great RPG, has similar mechanics to Mario RPG in terms of going ahead and having time-based attacks, which after playing Sea of Stars and Mario RPG back to back, now when I'm playing, I went back to Octopath Traveler 2, I tend to press A right before an attack or right before I get hit. I'm like, oh yeah, right, this doesn't work in this game. I really wish these time-based attacks were in more games. But anyways, highly recommend Sea of Stars. It's pretty cheap too, so it's highly recommended. I also recommend The Messenger as well, because they do kind of tie in together. So definitely recommend both of those games, and I can't wait to see what they come out with next. So there you have it, my top 10 games of 2023. Honestly, I would say forget about the order. The order doesn't really matter. I try to put it in the order where I think was best to, well, I mean, they're all really great games. It's really hard to decide on these games. They're all really good. So just don't worry about the order. It's just whatever you like, go ahead and try it out. If you feel like a game is, catching your attention, give it a try. These are 10 games that I just picked out that I felt like, especially for me, they stood out this year, and I highly recommend playing these games. Especially my top 5, like these top 5 games are just games that I just had a blast with. The other 5, I did have a blast with it, but these just hit a little bit harder. But overall, they're just a lot of great games. 2024 is going to be even crazier. I do have a video going up probably by next week where I'll be going over the top 10 games to look out in 2024, the first quarter of 2024 at that, because the first quarter is it's just crazy. It's crazy. I can't believe that all these games are coming out in 2024. There's a lot of great games coming out in 2024 as well. So yeah, just wait for that video. But as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also share the channel, it does help out a lot. We are trying to hit 600 subscribers before the end of the year, so every little bit does help. Yeah, share the channel, all that stuff. Don't forget to check out the podcast. We do it every Sunday. We won't be doing the podcast on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve because of course it's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, so we won't be on those days, but then we'll be back full force when it comes to the beginning of January. Make sure you do check us out though this Sunday. My name is James, and I'll catch you guys next time.